welcome to another video from me, Mr. Cobalman. Today I'm wanting to introduce you to a new piece of flight sim software. It's a piece of software that's designed to help simmers, whether you are new to simming or whether it's something that you've been doing for some time and you've got a hangar full of simulated aircraft. The product's called Flowcort. It provides flows, checklists and tutorials for any number of different sim aircraft, or at least that's the target, and it just makes it a bit easier for you to remember some of the steps you need to go through for a successful flight. Had originally intended to create a sort of a promo video for it, and I figured that the best way for me to introduce you to it was to use it during a simulated flight. So what I'm going to do today is to revisit what was always my most popular video. It's been superseded now by one other, and it was one of the first ever videos I created for the channel, which is a flight from Plymouth in the UK to Jersey in the Channel Islands using the default Airbus A321. That original video, please go and take a listen if you would like to. It suffered from a number of problems though, especially related to the sound of the aircraft being too loud and masking the sound of my own voice as I'm trying to narrate the steps and everything that goes on. So this video is intended to be an improvement of that, as well as allowing me to introduce you to Flowcort. Right, enough babbling. Let's get on with it. So here is Flowcort. I'm not going to talk you through some of the features now. You'll see them as we go through and as we're doing the flights. What I am going to do though is move it down here for the time being, simply because I need to be working on this part of the screen here. Okay, so for now my first instruction is FSX start, which I have done. Let's move on to the next one. FSX free flight select. Is it going to come up? Eventually, yep, there we go, okay. And now for the current aircraft, I want the Airbus A321, which I have. The current location should be Plymouth. Let's change that. Okay, and for the current weather, we want clear skies. Check. And for the current time and season, we want daytime. Pretty sure we are on that, but let's double check. Yes, we are. Okay, so that's all good. Free flight options, flight planner. And on here, choose the departure location. Order automatically set to Plymouth, so that's fine. My airports, ID, Echo Golf Hotel Delta, which we've already done that part of course, and the OK. Choose the destination. And for this, we want to enter Echo Golf Juliet. Jersey. OK. So I can mark those steps as done. Choose the flight plan type is IFR. And we will want to have low altitude airways. And generate the flight plan flying route. Okay, that's it. So ask me if I want to save. I'll need to move this out of the way again temporarily. I've already got it saved, but I'll just overwrite it. And do I want to move it? Yes, I do. And those are those steps there. So for the next step, do you want to move the flight simulator to? I've already done that, and it's fly now. Okay, in the scenes then, as we are loading up that scenario that we've set in the background, I can talk through this part here. There's a line entry here, which is sort of a, what would we call that? A light-coloured background anyway. I can't think of the colour to describe that. No doubt some of you will. Peach maybe, but that sounds a bit Anyway, so this is indicating that that is an event. So when this event has finished, when it has occurred, that's when we go on to the next step. So the event here that we're looking for is flight loaded. Now the flight itself, or the event itself, cannot be selected when you use the keys to navigate through Flowcort. You will go straight beyond that. So we'll mark that prior step as done. Now we're into the world map. Now one of the things I can do with Flowcort is to have it work through the sim. So I don't need to click on Flowcort to use the key combinations to do what I need to do. Instead, what I can do is to connect to my flight sim as I've done there. And then using key mappings, which are explained in the accompanying website that goes along with the product, and indeed later videos on the video channel for Flowcort. It shows you how to do that connection, map the key maps to events inside a flight sim so that we can control Flowcort through the flight sim. Alright, so that's enough explaining for that. I'm now going to go back to the flight sim, and you can tell when I'm in the flight sim because when I'm in it, you'll hear the sound. I'm using FSX Steam Edition here. If I click away from it onto something else, the sound will disappear, so it's quite obvious if I'm moving out of the flight sim to do something else. Okay, FSX main menu, we want the world map. World map. Of course, having said all that, the sound goes away when you bring up the map inside of FSX, so there we are. And here is the map. I'm going to have to move Flowcort out of the way here because it's kind of getting in the way. There is an alternative route I can choose here, and let me do that. I can set the transparency level for Flowcort, so I can set it to whatever I like. So I can still read Flowcort whilst also being able to see through it to whatever is underneath. And that setting works for me. I'm going to turn it back to full screen later on so that we can see what's happening in Flowcort. But when I'm flying a particular route or something, perhaps I would certainly want to make Flowcort transparent so I could see through it when I'm flying. Alright, with the map selected, destination select, so the remarks tell me to use the pointer at the edge of the screen until I get to the destination. We'll get that centered in the screen. Okay, that's that done. And next thing I want to do is to bring world map back because for some reason I stabbed the escape key. This could definitely go down as one of my uninterrupted videos. Okay, so with it in the right place, click on the airport icon and note down the details which are presented here. There are actually two ways I can click on it. There we go. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Let's zoom in. There we are. It brings up the facility information as opposed to just the foreshortened version for the ILS systems we saw earlier. These are some of the information details we want to record here. And again, the notes here inside of Flowcort will clue you in on what needs to be done. So with that data recorded, we can close that down and we can close that down. And in Flowcort, I'll just get us to the right place. Good. Okay, so with that done, we're now ready for the cockpit prep. We finished the sim prep and we're now in for the cockpit prep as indicated here. So next up, views instrument panel, radio panel is what we're after. Use instrument panel, radio panel. The radio panel in the 3D cockpit doesn't allow you to tune correctly, so we've got to bring up the 2D panel here for this version. Select nav 1, tuning dial 110.9. And switch that over. Next I want to dial in 110.3 and we'll just leave that active like that. I want to set the call button for nav 1 so we'll be notified when we're within range of the ILS. And with the radio panel now, right click and select close window. You'll notice on some of these instructions as we're going through that there are images, as shown here, for the steps that you are taking to clue you in on where some of the features are. And if I click on that, I'll get a larger scale version of the image so I can see more clearly where the steps pointing me towards. Sometimes though on the steps you'll see that there aren't any images, so instead we have a link to the flowcort.com website and indeed the Flowcort YouTube channel. Okay, back on with the instructions. Where are we next? The baro switch, which we want to switch over to hectopascals. That's there. And speed dial, we want to dial in 250 knots for the speed. Oops. Behind this, the heading I want to set 306. And for the course I want to set 86. Gone too far again. Okay, that's good. The altitude increments I want to switch to 1000 and then dial in the altitude of 5000. Okay, that's good. And the flaps to 25%. Okay, on the main menu then we want views, air traffic. I'll pop that up here. There we go. I'll reset my view out the front of the cockpit now. Tune Plymouth Tower. Request IFR clearance.
Hotel Kilo Sierra November is type Airbus A321 IFR to Jersey, ready to copy. Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November is cleared to Jersey Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 5000. Departure frequency is 133.55. Squawk 2524.
And I'll acknowledge.
Hotel Kilo Sierra November cleared to Jersey Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 5000. Departure on 133. Squawk 2524. Airbus Kilo Sierra November, correct. Contact ground on 118.15. Plymouth ground, Airbus India.
And request taxi IFR. I'll just put the transparency setting back to its minimum so we can see more clearly what's happening in Flowcort.
Contact tower on 118.15 when ready. Taxiing hold short runway 31. Airbus Kilo Sierra November. Plymouth Tower, Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November at runway 31. Ready for departure. IFR to Jersey. Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November. Cleared for takeoff. Runway 31. Surface wind calm. Cleared for takeoff. Runway 31. Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November.
Okay, so we're good to go, and as soon as I marked that last item as done for cockpit prep, it takes us automatically into the takeoff section then for this particular tutorial. Let's reset now the transparency. I think about there will be okay. I'm going to pop this down to this part of the screen for now. And okay, so we are ready for the takeoff. The takeoff, of course, an awful lot of stuff happens really quickly. It's probably as well to read forward through the instructions before trying this part for the first time, but let's see how we do. Okay, so I'm going to move my throttle slowly forward so it picks up. There we go. And all the way fully forward. By default, the parking brake is set off when you do this default scenario. Don't know why, but that's just the way that it is. Okay, I'm looking for about 130 knots then. There we go, and up we come. And we are climbing positive rate so the gear can come up. And at 800 feet, there we are. I can turn on the autopilot. and the auto throttle, speed, the heading, the altitude, and acknowledge the handoff. And retract the flaps now that I've reached acceleration altitude. I'm just going to very quickly click onto Flowcort so that I could get us up to speed quickly there. I went through all the steps manually and then just went into Flowcort to mark them as done. Okay, so we are in good shape. We've gone through the rush of takeoff and we're now starting our climb out. In fact, we're very close now to our cruising altitude of only 5,000 feet. In my first video I was using photo scenery for this part of the world. This time I'm using Orbex EU England. I do think it's a remarkable piece of software. Apart from the occasional popping of the trees, it's astonishingly good stuff. Okay. So with the interaction going on with air traffic there, it's easy to see how you can get behind the curve a little bit. With the key mappings that I've got through FSX, it's quite easy to move Flowcort through its various steps and still be able to keep a view on what's happening with the air traffic menu and what I'm needing to do inside of the cockpit. Next thing I know I'm looking out for here, because it's highlighted, is that I'll get a message from ATC inviting me to fly onto a heading of 140. That's the Orbex impression of Plymouth in Devon in the southwest of the UK. Tamar Bridge down there, crossing the River Tamar between Devon and Cornwall. Over there, Plymouth Airport now closed. It's been closed for some years, to the consternation of some of the locals. Regular viewers will know that Henry the dog likes to make an appearance in any number of my videos, and if you can pick out a dog barking in the background, it's not the hydraulic PTU inside the Airbus. That really is Henry the Labrador doing his bit for the channel. So we're coming alongside, or abeam, where we took off now, Plymouth Airport over here. Eventually, of course, we'll intercept with the flight path that was calculated by FSX. And as we approach there, we'll get instructions from air traffic to fly on a heading of 110, and then to resume our own navigation when we'll activate the GPS. Incidentally, that strange coloured section that you can see over there, that's Dartmoor. So the colour's right, and that sort of white stuff you can see there, these are works for, I was going to say chalk, it's not chalk, it's clay, China clay. And that's it's been quite an industry in the area for some time.
Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite an industry in the area for some time. Quite
Far more interesting looking at the land rather than an expanse of water. Okay, so there's our instruction, and I will acknowledge it first of all. We should of course do aviate, navigate, communicate, but in this particular instance we've got it cracked, it's not a problem. What I'm going to do here is, instead of dialing in the new course, I'm going to go straight over to resume our own navigation. So, according to the instructions, nav GPS switch onto GPS, and then the loc button, and we are good. And we're now in the cruise phase of the flight, where things get a little bit less hectic, and the cabin crew can go and dole out overpriced coffees and dodgy looking paninis and whatever else. But in this flight, because it is so short, the cruise section is fairly short, and before we know where we are, we'll receive vectors from air traffic to get us in to land at Jersey. So while it's doing that, I'll take a little while to talk a bit more about Flowcort then, because I've clicked on it. Of course, we've lost the sound, so I'll have to keep an eye over here for instructions from air traffic. So the first thing I'll do is I'll dial back up dial down the transparency so we can see a bit more clearly what's going on. I made a great effort to try to keep Flowcort as minimal as possible, so it provides you the information but it's not getting in your way. Transparency is one of the ways of doing that. But this window down here that contains the remarks, which contains additional information for each of the steps if you need them, and the images below are something that's optional, and as you have perhaps gone through a tutorial and you now know where individual controls and things are, you may well not need these. So there's an option to be able to get rid of them. So now all you see is the grid. So it's your choice to either have all that information or less of it, whichever is most important and relevant to you. If you do decide to see all of it, perhaps you're not really keen on the portrait mode, so you can switch over to landscape mode if you prefer. I like it this way. I generally like it with this information not showing, but I'm going to leave it on for this particular tutorial flight. I was asked there to contact Manchester Control, which I will. No doubt, having done that shortly, they'll put me onto London Control as well. One of the downsides of this flight is that I'm crossing quite a few boundaries, air traffic boundaries, so you might get flip-flopped backward and forward, as if by magic. Arguably, of course, they're just keeping you busy. Okay, I think it'll be quiet for a little while now. So back to here, as I was saying, the lines with the peach-coloured background, I've got to think of a better colour name for that, I'm sure it's not right, are events. These are things that we are waiting to happen before we take the next step in the process. The great thing about these flights in FSX when you set them up is they do follow a fairly well established procedure, so it's easy to predict where we're going to be going. Because we set the weather onto clear skies, that's not going to be present any challenges for us in terms of which runway we use and, as a result, which approach we would have to use. I can script all of it and that appears inside our Flowcort. What else can I tell you about the application? It's divided into various sections of flight. You can see them up here. We've gone through those first few steps, and the remaining steps then, vectors, descent, approach, landing, taxi and shutdown, pretty much as you would expect. Nothing new there. As I say, I control Flowcort primarily through FSX, through key mappings, And those key maps do a number of things, including wherever I want to hide Flowcort so I can focus on the job at hand. So let me just give you just a very quick example of how that might work. So there we are. That's probably how I might be using it, although in my particular instance I wouldn't be showing the extra detail at the bottom. I would just be showing that. And then if I want to, and there I'm back in the sim, I can just hit the relevant hotkey and it disappears. If I want to bring it back, it's the same hotkey again, and back it pops. So for these cruise phases, you can just pop it out the way. It's not getting in the way of anything, and then just pop it back whenever you're ready. I'm going to bring the additional window back up now, just for the purposes of this demo flight. There we go.
Oscar Charlie uniform. Contact grounded approach sun 128.65.
So that's Flowcort. It's born out of a need from me, really, because I have so many different aircraft in my sim hangar. Sometimes it's difficult to keep up on the flows and the checklists that you need for all of them, and just a way to be able to jump into one of the sim aircraft and fly it with a quick reminder of what the relevant flow items are and so forth was something that's very handy for me, and that's really how Flowcort came about. It also occurred to me that the tutorials that are provided by some of the really good providers, vendors of sim products like PMDG and Aerosoft and so on, with their products, might be better done as a product that you can use inside the sim rather than using a separate PDF where it's so easy to lose your place, or you get an instruction saying refer to diagram so and so, which is 3 pages away, and you've got to leaf backwards and forwards to find the relevant information. Whereas here with Flowcort, you can have everything you need right at the point that you need it. There's no need to go backwards and forwards. It's there for each step of the way. My idea with Flowcort then was originally to create something for me that would have been useful for me, but it very quickly became apparent that other simmers might find a use for it as well. And one of the things I want to do with Flowcort is to ask you a few questions which will help me in deciding which way to take it next. For example, my intention, if I want to carry on working on Flowcort, is to charge for it. That way I've got sufficient money to enable me to develop it further and also to support the product as well. But then a fundamental question becomes, how much would you pay for Flowcort? So I'm going to ask these questions again at the end of the video, so I'd really appreciate it if you could take a bit of time and have a consideration of how much you think Flowcort is worth. Okay, so that's us. I better just go and attend to that quickly. So the instructor says the load button goes off, the nav GPS switch is next, and the heading knob we will need to engage again, and then we will need to dial in 140. There we go. And acknowledge the assigned approach.
Expect vectors ILS, runway 8, approach, Airbus Kilo Sierra November.
Good. Going back to what I was talking about with regard to how much you would pay for Flowcort. When Flowcort is going to be floated initially, it will come with some standard tutorials or flows or checklists for some of the default aircraft in your chosen sim. Initially I'm looking to support FSX Classic, FSX Steam Edition, and also prepared versions 2 and 3. Let's just acknowledge the handoff here. And then I'll probably just get the option to connect to Guernsey, or to contact Guernsey. There we go. Wow, busy controller. Wow. Funny thing is, if I can't get in here, they'll be the first ones to bark at me if I don't respond to them in good time. Yay, I managed to get in.
Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November, Guernsey approach, Roger, UNH 1013.
Okay, so back to talking about Flowcort quickly. As I say, by default it will come with some aircraft for your default sim. There'll be the default aircraft that are provided, it won't be any payware stuff. Later on I'll be creating flows, checklists and tutorials for some of the other aircraft that are in Flight Sim, and I'd be very interested to know which aircraft you would like to see supported, and again how much you think a tutorial or flows or checklists for that particular aircraft would be worth to you. Again, I'll remind you at the end of the video that that's the questions that I'm hoping you'll address, and give you a link to the Flowcort website where you can pick up on this questionnaire, and with a bit of luck and some decent feedback, I'll be able to get Flowcort produced and brought to the market. If you're unable to get to the website for whatever reason, please feel free to leave anything you have to say in the comments section below this video. That would be greatly appreciated.
Navigation, climb altitude 15,000. Turn left heading 060, resume on navigation. Climb and maintain altitude 15,000. Beach, Victor, November, Lima.
Okay, so back to our flight here. Just ahead of us is the Channel Island of Guernsey, and we're approaching the Golf Uniform Romeo VOR, which is a VOR based on Guernsey Airport, and it's from that point that we'll probably get vectored for our approach to land at Guernsey. Sorry, at Jersey. We're flying overhead Guernsey to land at Jersey. As per my last video for a flight that I did with the Project Airbus, this video is also being recorded live. So I won't be editing anything out, I won't be trying to patch bits in. This is everything done in one take, warts and all. Hopefully, with the addition of Flowcort, things will appear somewhat smoother, somewhat more practiced. Because of course that's part of the reason why Flowcort exists. It's to make these flights a bit simpler, a bit easier, and allow you to get up to speed really, really quickly. We will see. I'm not on the ground yet. Anything could happen, right? trying to see if I could change the size of the window here. Let's move Flowcort out of the way just for a second. I can and I can't, so we'll leave it at that anyway. So there's Guernsey just ahead of us, just about make out the Pappy for the runway at Guernsey. Over there, the coast of France. Okay, that's in line with what we were expecting. So go. So we're heading 175 and the event is beeping starts. So for that, views, instrument panel, radio panel, turn off the call button for nav 1. The only reason that we did that is to know that we had the correct frequency tuned for the ILS at Jersey, which we do. Okay, so we're now on to the descent phase of our flight. The event we're looking out for here is a message from air traffic asking us to descend to 1,600 feet, at which point we'll follow on with the relevant steps in Flowcort. A bit difficult to see here because of the glare coming off the sea, so I'm going to move it. Okay, let's do that. We'll swap this over to 100. Dial this down to 1,600.
Descend 1,600.
Acknowledge the instruction. Next event then, we're waiting for clearance for the approach from air traffic before we carry on with our next set of steps.
You are 20 miles west, turn left, heading 115, descend and maintain 1,600, cleared ILS, runway 8, approach, maintain 1,600 until established on the localizer. Contact Jersey Tower on 119.45. Turn left, heading 115, descend 1,600, cleared ILS, runway 8, approach, maintain 1,600 until established. Tower on 119.45, Airbus Kilo Sierra November. Jersey Tower, Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November is 18 miles west, inbound ILS, runway 8, approach. Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November, Jersey Tower, continue to runway 8, QNH 1013. Continued runway 8, Airbus Kilo Sierra November.
Okay, good stuff. We've got through there okay. We're looking for 1,600 feet now. Let's move Flowcort down quickly. Starting to level off now, so we can dial the speed back to 180. we go. Next up, turn the localizer button on and the ILS button. So waiting for 190 knots to come up now on the PFD. We'll select 50% flaps. Once they're set, we'll dial the speed back to 150. He's barking at me because we haven't got the gear down yet. But I'm waiting till we're about 8 miles on the DME before we do that. There we are, so we'll gear down and the approach button on, and that's the end of the approach phase. We're set up for the landing phase now. We're waiting for an acknowledgement from air traffic that we're clear to land. Acknowledge that. Flaps to 75%. Good idea to hold short. Okay, we're waiting till we intercept the glide slope, which is now. We see by the nose down moment. Flaps to 100%. Speed brakes on, so shift / will arm the speed brakes for us. And the speed back to 140. Next thing we're looking for then is for the nose to cross the start of the runway, whereupon we'll disengage the auto throttle and the autopilot, and we're just going to let it fly itself down onto the ground at that stage. We won't quote help unquote by messing around with the joystick and the throttle. It will just fly itself straight on. Move my view across slightly so I can see the autopilot and the auto throttle to more easily disengage them. A couple of aircraft waiting there. Okay, auto throttle off, autopilot off. Touchdown, reverse thrust, and brakes. looking for 40 knots. There we are. We'll release the brakes. Reverse thrust is stowed. I'm going for the taxi phase now. I need to provide a bit of juice to get us to the end of the runway. Get us down to taxi speed of 20 knots or below.
Airbus Kilo Sierra November, contact ground on 121.9er. Bombardier Golf Sierra Alpha Echo November, cleared for takeoff, runway 8, surface line hold. Over to 121.9er, Airbus Kilo Sierra November, goodbye. Cleared for takeoff. Jersey ground, Airbus India.
Okay, let's get taxi to gates.
Airbus India Hotel Kilo Sierra November, taxi to stand 1 using taxiway Alpha. Taxiing to stand 1 via taxiway Alpha, Airbus Kilo Sierra November.
Okay, so let's get ourselves taxied to the stand.
21 on the taxiway. Viper X-ray uniform November, continue taxi. Roger, Viper X-ray uniform November.
So we can stow the flaps now as we're on our way in. I'm using my HOTAS throttle to do this, and we can also stow the speed brake, which I see has already been done. Slow down just a little bit. Oh, Mr. Cessna. First you get a wiggle on. Okay, so we can turn off the progressive taxi now. Coming into the gate. Oops. Let's bring it around. There we go. A bit too fast again, I think. Getting near it. And stop. Okay. So throttles to minimum. Brakes release before putting the parking brake on, because you can't do both. There we go. Engine 1 off. Engine 2 off. Sometimes those switches are cycled a bit strangely inside the default Airbus, but there we are. And finally the battery switch off. And there we go, that's it. That's used Flowcort to get the default Airbus FSX A321 from Plymouth Airport, Echo Golf Hotel Delta, to Jersey Airport, Echo Golf Juliet Juliet. A quick reminder then, if you'd be so good, of those 3 questions that I hope you'll answer for me. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. This is Mr. Cobalt Man. Thanks ever so much for watching. I look forward to welcoming you next time.